Welcome back to Eat Sleep Boxing Repeats YouTube channel. Nice to be joined by Elliot and Paul again for another weekly preview. This week we're mostly going to be focusing on the Liam Smith and Hassan Mwakinyo card in Liverpool. This is a card that is on Sky Sports on Saturday night. Please click the link in the description and purchase a day pass with Sky Sports if you are not already a Sky customer. So you can, purchase it with us. Please give that a try. And I think it's going to be a really good show on Saturday night. Gents, how are we? Looking forward to Saturday night?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Elliot. Looking forward to it. There's always Sky Sports seem to be putting on some decent cards of late, so hopefully this is another one this weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I totally
absolutely.
agree. Totally agree. Paul, looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be good. Should be good. We'll get straight into the main event. Liam Smith, who has been in the form of his career in recent months, we know, had a good, impressive stoppage victory over Jesse Vargas in his last fight. Looks like he could be fighting for another world title in the next 12 months, maybe. Fighting Hassan Mwakinyo, who I think most people in this country know as the guy who came over and stopped Sam Eggington in 2 rounds a few years ago. He's still only 27, so he must have been 21, 22 when he stopped Sam Eggington. I think people aren't aware of what else he's done, really. I think his record is 20-2. Bit of a punch with 14 knockouts. But I don't think you're going to have many people who think he's going to topple Liam Smith on Saturday night, but maybe it's a bit of the unknown. Be interested to get your thoughts on it. Elliot, going to go to you first.
Uh, yeah, I'm quite interested in this fight actually, just based on kind of what you were saying around obviously the fact that again we talked off camera about pronouncing his name, but I'm going to refer to him solely as the Tornado. Obviously, like you say, being 27 years old, kind of carries power. It was that recent victory that he's obviously really TKO'd, obviously fairly aging, but nonetheless very live Julius and Dongo as well in that list. I think Liam Smith is one of those guys where weirdly it almost felt like at one point that he might almost be seen as, I mean, that Fowler fight especially. And then you're looking at like the Eggington fight where you think maybe is he coming down a level? Are they pitching him down a level? But he's come through them and shown that he's obviously still significantly better than that level. Coming up, obviously was unlucky against Kurbanov as well. Over that obviously an away fight as well, which a lot of people, myself included, actually thought he won. And obviously had a performance against Vargas. So really, Liam Smith's a super welter, obviously still is a world level fighter. I think that's clear to see. I think again this is just another sort of stepping stone really into him hopefully getting a shot hopefully at Charlo in the next sort of year or so, I suppose.
Sounds good. What about you, Paul? What are you expecting on Saturday night?
Yeah, to be honest, it's, like I had said there, I think, and like you said as well, Study, I think that it's fair to say Smith has been really in the form of his life, bar that lost at Kurbanov, which I completely agree. I think he did win that fight. I think it was close, but I do think he won that and he got a dodgy decision. Yeah, I like watching Liam Smith, to be honest. That all Scouts fight between him and Fowler was one that was a lot of people there was, if you think about it, Liam Smith was under a lot of pressure in that fight because 99% of people expected him to win, having been the world champion and not being overly, he's not like he's overly old or anything like that. Plus, if you lost, as I'm sure Greg agrees, I lost Anthony Fowler isn't something you want on your resume. So but no, honestly, Liam Smith's impressed me recently. That last fight against Jesse Vargas, I think it was a 10th round stoppage. He's really impressed me recently, and I think he can definitely, provided he wins here at the weekend, which I do fully expect him to do, and he looks good doing it. I don't see why he can't get a world title shot before the end of the year, or if not early 2023.
Good stuff. Going to do a little pub quiz. Pub quiz, not really a pub quiz. It's just one question. Liam Smith, Jesse Vargas was on the undercard of which main event fight? You got 10
We
seconds.
go in.
Got 10 seconds to give me an answer.
Oh,
Um,
Cam Brook.
Taylor
Taylor.
Serrano.
Yeah, I thought. Helly wins. I thought you were going to say Taylor Cattrall then. But, Taylor Serrano, April 30th in New York. Paul, you're a casual fan. Okay, Yeah, I think interested to review look at the odds later in the week, but I just do feel like Liam Smith is quite a heavy favourite, and as long as he takes Mwakinyo seriously, I believe he'll be victorious. In terms of what's next for him, I think Elliot touched on Charlo obviously holds all the belts, so it's a bit of a not a great division to be in. I think I would say like middleweight. What do you assuming Liam Smith does win on Saturday? Do you think he could fight Charlo next? And if not, is there anyone out there in the division that you look at and think that's who you'd like to see Liam Smith face? Paul, is there anyone that springs to mind at all?
Well, I think it really depends on what happens with Charlo, because is there not talk of him wanting to move up as well? So he could move up, because I know his brother's moved up. He's in now 2 divisions above him, so it's not like they would be in the same division or anything. So if he does move up, there's all of a sudden the 4 belts become fragmented. So then you'd like to think that Smith's one of the first names to get a title shot. Who against? It's a good question. There's quite a lot of friends, but I think a lot of people think Brian Castano still does. He's still around that level. He potentially won the first fight against Charlo, and the second fight, yeah, he got knocked out, but he was doing okay up until the stoppage. I think he's still hanging about at world level, so he's the first name really that sprung to mind there, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely a strange one with Charlo. I feel like that rematch against Castano was back in May. It's now pretty much September, and not aware of his next steps as of yet, if he's moving up or defending his belts or not. Elliot, is there any names that spring to mind for you?
Well, like Paul was saying, I think in a way, I almost feel like Liam Smith's best chance for world title next year would be if they were fragmented, and he could fight for fight for the WBO, get someone like Tim Tszyu or whatever like that. I think probably be a good fight for him there. Not necessarily saying he'd win, but that's an opponent I could see him fighting. And then obviously you've got Fundora still around there, isn't he, as well? And Castano. So those are like the 3, I suppose. You'd have to probably walk through one of those for a world title if Charlo does vacate. Like you say, the Charlo thing is quite unusual, isn't it? For you holding on the belt, which you don't know where you're going next, having had sort of 6 months out, it does seem a bit weird. But I'm not convinced we'll see Smith Charlo next, unless kind of Charlo maybe saw it as an easy defense. But I think if we have to walk through one of those other 3 names.
Good stuff. All right, we'll move on. Paul, I will hand things over to you for the undercard fight of the week.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. So obviously, the co-feature bout, let's say, of the Liam Smith card in Liverpool, it is, in my opinion, an absolutely cracking light heavyweight domestic dust-up between Dan Aziz and Shakan Pitters, and I think this is a really, really good fight on paper. Just giving you a bit of a background of the 2 fighters. Aziz 16-0, 11 of those wins coming by stoppage. Pitters is 17-1 with only 6 stoppage victories. He's a freak of nature, Pitters, in terms of his height. He's 6'6" for a light heavyweight, so he's absolutely huge. Not really anything in terms of age to separate. Just Aziz is 1 year younger. Aziz himself's down at 5'10". He's a little bit shorter. I believe they're both orthodox. So yeah, obviously, I think both fighters have won the British title, and this is for the British title. So yeah, it's a good fight on paper for me. Both have some really good wins too. If you look at Dan Aziz's wins, he's got wins over the likes of Reece Cartwright, Ricky Summers, Hosea Burton's a really good win. They're ones that stand out. Pitters also has good wins against, similarly, Reece Cartwright, Chad Sugden and Dex Spellman are probably his best wins. I think for me, it's fair to say that on paper, you've got to favour Dan Aziz ever so slightly here. I think that of the names that he's beaten, I think Hosea Burton's a very good name to have in your record. But again, you could come back at me and say that Shakan Pitters' only loss was to Craig Richards, who then went and gave Joshua Buatsi extreme trouble, who a lot of people rate as the best light heavyweight in Britain. So yeah, interested to get your thoughts on this, lads. I'll go to Elliot Grigg first.
I agree with Paul. I agree with what you're saying. The man, obviously, who co-headlines our betting show as well. So I'm not going to bet against him in this instance. I actually would also have Dan Aziz as part favourite for this fight. I think basing that really on the fact that I saw Pitters Richards as kind of the fight that stands out for me, and I've seen him lose that, and I saw I saw Aziz fight back, so I think I kind of skewed my kind of mentality on the victory here. But I think, like you're saying, it's like that loss to Richards is by no means, a decisive way of sort of counting against someone. But I'm just kind of leaning slightly towards Dan Aziz. Obviously, like 11 KOs, 16 victories as well. So obviously carries the power. So again, the way you're looking at it really is, for me, it'd either be Aziz KO or Pitter's points. Is how I'm kind of looking at it. But I'm leaning slightly towards an Aziz KO.
Yeah, thanks for that, Elliot. Similarly, Stoddy, would you agree with what Elliot's saying there? Do you think this is either a Pitter's points win or an Aziz knockout, or can you see it going a different way?
I think it's a 50. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think Shaq Pitters has always looked very good in his career up until the Craig Richards fight, and I just think that he just got caught. And Craig Richards, like, he punches very hard at light heavyweight, and just you don't want to kind of be caught cold by him. I feel like what's interesting here is the height difference. So I feel like Shaq Pitters can win this fight by just kind of doing what he's done in other fights. Like nearly all of his fights have come by points, and he's just kind of kept his opponent away for 12 rounds. He did that with Dex Spellman twice. So I don't know, I'm torn. I can't really give a prediction. Dan Aziz has looked very good recently. The last couple of years, he's notched up some really good wins. He's gone from done the traditional route, Southern area, English, now British. Now it's great to see him in some big fights. But yeah, it's a really tough one to call. Both fighters definitely can win this one. I think it's going to be. I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen the odds personally, but I think the betting odds will probably be fairly even. If not, I'd probably expect Aziz to be the slight favourite. But yeah, let's just hope that it's a fight that lives up to our expectations and we'll get a cracking show. And I'm going to hand back to you, Stoddy. Or are we going for another main event side, or are we going for our fight here?
I'll do the under the radar fight and then we'll head back to Elliot. Just going to touch on, there is a world title fight on the bill in Liverpool. Natasha Jonas against Patricia Burkhalter. Patricia Burkhalter was supposed to fight Cecilia Brackhouse a month or so ago before Brackhouse pulled out. As we know, Jonas became world champion in her last fight at super welterweight after moving up, I think it was 2 or 3 weight divisions. She's now aiming to unify. She's got the WBO. She's aiming to get the WBC as well. Patricia Burkhalter, maybe she's 15-0. Not going to pretend like I know a lot about her. I imagine Jonas is the favourite here. But yeah, it's a chance for Jonas to become a unified champion. And I feel like there's also some big domestic fights available for Jonas. I think Terry Harper being one of them, Hannah Rankin being another. We know Harper and Rankin are facing each other next month, I believe. So yeah, maybe she could face the winner of that down the line. Who knows? But yeah, interested to where you see Natasha Jonas's career going. She's 38 now, so she can't really have too many fights left. But yeah, I'll hand back over to you, Paul, on just your thoughts on this fight and Natasha Jonas as well.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. Natasha Jonas, I think it's fair to say, a lot of the female fights do go the distance, and I think that's partly to do with the 2-minute rounds. But if you look at Natasha Jonas, over 11 wins, she's got 8 stoppages, so she's clearly a frightening puncher. And last time out, as you said, they're studying moving up 2 or 3 weight divisions or whatever it was, and she clearly carried the power up there with her, because second round stoppage over Chris Namas, I think she's looked sensational. Even if you look at the Harper fight, she looked good then. A lot of people had her winning that fight. The Katie Taylor fight, she was super, super close. She looked good there. And then since then, even since moving up more weight divisions, she has looked really good. Yeah, a chance to become the unified champion. Don't know a whole lot about the opponent, obviously, apart from the fact that she has a win over Hannah Rankin, who we all know well in the UK here. So yeah, WBC, chance to become the WBC champion as well as already being the WBO champion. I think if I had to put a prediction out there, I think I can't see why Natasha Jonas can't win by stoppage again. I don't know if that's maybe me being a wee bit ignorant because I don't know much about her opponent and she is undefeated. But I think the power that Natasha Jonas does possess is frightening, and she can stop anyone really in the division.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think she's not to be overlooked. And just remembered, obviously, Jonas and Terry Harper had a fight a couple of years ago. I think it was at Fight Camp, and it was a draw. I think a lot of people thought Jonas won, so there's kind of a narrative there for there being a rematch, maybe early next year. Elliot, just going to get your thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, so I actually agree. You lads have done a fantastic job there, actually, in summarising it. To be perfectly honest, I just say that in addition, that I was delighted for Natasha Jonas to actually finally get over the line, become a world champion. It seemed like one of those things where you're just kind of willing it to happen after a couple of fights, which hasn't necessarily got over the line. Like you're talking about that, the fight against Taylor, and obviously the fight against Terry Harper as well. So you're sort of like, yeah, I'm delighted. But like you say, it's with 38 years of age as well. It's gonna be a case of really of what must be sort of like maybe one or two left, really. I mean, like I don't know. I don't know what's in a thought process, whether it's just sort of a case of, having the sort of extra earning that comes from being a world champion and seeing women's boxing growing as it is. But again, delighted for her. I don't know too much about the challenger either in this instance. But like Paul mentioned, obviously she's got a victory over Rankin. So in a way, there's intrigue there, but I fully expect and hope that Jonas comes through it.
Yeah, we shall see. Yeah, I'm not going to kind of not going to act like this isn't a true fight. This Burkhart's a world champion in her own right, undefeated, and we'll get to see more of her on Saturday night. Last but not least, gonna head over to you, Elliot Grigg, for the other main event fight this weekend.
Yes, indeed we are. So this is a fight. Now we've already called Paul a casual in here, but to be perfectly honest, this is a fight that the casuals can really get involved in, and me myself am a guilty as sin casual. So frankly, I'm delighted by this fight and to be covering it. So where we're going over to the US on Sunday, I believe this fight is taking place. Interestingly, and we're going to Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz. Now, I suppose both of these names are familiar to everyone in boxing, really. But I'll just give you again a few facts and figures. So obviously Ruiz is still only 32 years old, which I think is an interesting one. Obviously, he's had 34 victories, 2 losses, 22 KOs, which when you compare it to Ortiz's record, which is also 33 victories, 2 losses, quite a similar record, but with essentially a 10, 11-year difference in age. Well, allegedly, Ortiz claims to be 43 years old, which, I mean, depending on I suppose how skilled you are at aging and dating someone based on looks alone does seem a bit generous. But I think we can look at both their records and just give you a bit of a breakdown. So obviously Ortiz came up against the King, Charles Martin, in January earlier this year, came through that. But obviously he's got fights against 2 fights against Wilder. One especially which he was kind of outboxing Wilder before he got stopped. Looked good. I mean, obviously, Wilder's not exactly hasn't exactly have the reputation of being Muhammad Ali movement wise, but equally is underrated actually, I think, in some ways as a boxer. He's getting comprehensively outboxed by Ortiz, who then must have been about 50. So that's that was commendable to him there. Obviously another victory against Britain's Dave Allen. So, but we go to Ruiz. He obviously has bounced around a bit since obviously the Joshua rematch. Obviously training with Canelo's camp for a while, fought Areola last year. It's quite a long time out as well. Didn't look the best in that fight either. I think was fair to say, but I think there's also possible issues around sort of weight and training and overtraining around that point as well, allegedly. But obviously the AJ victory being I suppose his highlight, but obviously took AJ full distance in the rematch and also had a very unlucky decision loss to Joseph Parker in Auckland, which is for a world title, obviously the WBO title, which a lot of people, myself included, actually think he got over the line. So again, this is almost like one of those fights where Andrew Ruiz has looked good in montage coming into this fight, and training montage looks focused. And I think, to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of fights for Andrew Ruiz up at heavyweight level, which I'm still intrigued to see. So hopefully he comes through this test against Ortiz, who has still got a reputation of being a gatekeeper, one that he's possibly held since early biblical times. So we're going to come to both of you guys first and ask you sort of for a prediction how you see this fight going. But I think also, I mean, I hope Andy Ruiz wins. So we're going to take it as though he might win and say, really, how would you match him in the heavyweight scene sort of going forward over the next sort of 1 or 2 fights? And I'm going to come to you, Elliot, start first.
Nice one, mate. Yep. So I remember watching the Lewis Ortiz Charles Martin fight. I think it was actually on New Year's Day this year, and Lewis Ortiz he looked 43 or older in that fight. I think look, we know the sort of level that Charles Martin is, and Charles Martin dropped him twice, was winning the fight up until the stoppage. So yeah, Lewis Ortiz. I'm not saying he's completely lost it and has got nothing left, but as long as Andy Ruiz has trained hard for this fight, he should have enough to beat Lewis Ortiz, and I'm pretty confident when I say that. And I just hope that Andy Ruiz, the winner of this fight, can stay active because, as you said, there's some big fights for the winner in this fight. I think it is nice to see two genuine I would say top 15 heavyweights fighting each other without there needing to be a belt on the line. So yeah, that's kind of my analysis of it. Can't really see past Andy Ruiz on this one as long as he has actually trained hard, because you never really know with him.
Paul, and the same to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. Great analysis there, and it is a fight that intrigues me. And I know Stoddy said there he didn't want to say that in the last fight with Charles Martin that Lewis Ortiz basically looked like he was done. I'll go as far as saying he looked shot to pieces to me. To be perfectly honest, if you're getting dropped twice by Charles Martin, I don't know where you stand really in the heavyweight division. Again, it could have been a bad night at the office. Don't get me wrong, it could have been, or he maybe missed the cycle of steroids for that fight. I'm not too sure. But if Andy Ruiz is on form, I think that I think if he's trained properly, I could see Andy Ruiz winning via stoppage in this fight. As you say, he didn't look great against Arreola, obviously, but that was 16 months ago. I believe, just as you say, from the training montages, he does look to be in decent shape for what we expect from Andy Ruiz. And he's got quick hands, some of the quickest in the heavyweight division, so he can put his combinations together well. I think that he'll bamboozle the aging Ortiz, who's probably quite slow now. It is an interesting fight, and I think that what you say there about Andy Ruiz fighting after this, I do hope he wins, because there are some big fights out there for him. Even now that they're both not world champions, even the Parker rematch in the future, I could see that being one that kind of makes sense, because if it was a final eliminator for a world title shot, whoever the champion be, then Parker will think, yeah, I've already beaten him before. I'll do it again. Ruiz is thinking, oh no, I definitely beat him and got a dodgy decision, so I'm going to put it right this time. That's a good fight. Another person we always throw out is Dylan White. Dylan White just always seems to be in a good fight, especially when he comes out of southpaw. So I think that Ruiz.
How do you see that going, Paul, if it did happen?
I think Andy Ruiz beats Dylan White, to be honest. Probably on points. But yeah, no, there's a few good ones out there. Yeah, who else you threw? Who else is up there at the minute? I know Hrgovic beat Zhang, but I don't know if he actually did. So a Hrgovic fight, a Zhang fight, whatever. I think there are definitely good fights out there for Andy Ruiz. So let's just hope he gets across the line this weekend, and we can see some bumper heavyweight action in the next year, 18 months.
Thank you very
much, Paul. Before I go back, I'm going to mention now.
Elliot, can I just interrupt, Elliot? Sorry. There's one fight that if like Wilder's fighting next month, I feel like if both him and Andy Ruiz win, there's going to be demand for that fight as well. I think that's the most likely fight for both of them, for both Wilder and Ruiz, if they both win. Just kind of due to timing and where they are in their careers as well. And that's another one I would lean towards Wilder, but again, really tough fight for both of them. Not sure what you guys think of that one.
I think I would lean towards Wilder just because of the equaliser punch that he has, and the size difference that he would have. And yeah, Paul, obviously we go to you for your prediction on that. But when you pass back to Elliot Stott before he closes, I just want to get Elliot Stott's final prediction on Andrew Ruiz, Dillian White as well before we close, please.
Thanks, Elliot. Yeah, I think that if Ruiz fought Wilder, I could see that being a Wilder stoppage. I could see it being similar in a sense to the Ortiz fight, where Ruiz might be winning. He might be 4 rounds up on the cards and then get stopped in the 5th or 6th. I could see that happening just with Wilder's punch, just freakish. So yeah, hopefully just Ruiz does win this weekend and we can see all these fights. So yes, back to you, Elliot, and don't forget about the prediction.
I think Dillian White beats Andy Ruiz. I just want to live in Briggs head rent free for the rest of the afternoon.
Losing signal.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this afternoon. But it's been great doing.
We finish on that low. On that low is how we finish.
I've just muted him. That's all we've got time for, gents. Thank you very much for your time. It's been great. Looking forward to the Liverpool show this weekend, as well as the Andy Ruiz Luis Ortiz fight on Sunday, which is happening over in the States. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Elliot as well.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching.